and Speed World. The NHRA, the world's largest motorsports sanctioning body, showcasing speeds in excess of 290 miles an hour and traveling the quarter mile in less than 5 seconds. Championship drag racing from the NHRA. The tour of the world's finest drag racers makes 19 stops a year in quest of the $18 million posted in cash and awards, plus the $1 million postseason payout to the Winston champions. The last NHRA event was in the capital of the Pelican State, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at State Capitol Dragway. There, a record Cajun Nationals crowd saw history made, as for the first time ever, a single team dominated all 3 professional categories. In Top Fuel Eliminator, defending Winston champion Gary Ormsby scored his first victory of the season, defeating Gene Snow with a great lead off the starting line. Snow's time was quicker of 5:14 to Ormsby's 5:15, but Gary's quick reactions carried the day. The green team continued to march to the winner's circle as John Force picked up his second victory of the season, defeating Richard Hartman in the final round with, again, a better reaction time at the starting line, telling the story. Force's time, 5:45. Hartman quicker but losing with a 5:44. The team sweep was completed by Larry Morgan, who absolutely dominated pro stock racing, and in defeating Mark Powey, posted his 3rd consecutive victory and took over the Winston points lead. The mechanical juggernaut that is NHRA Championship Drag Racing now moves to National Trail Raceway just outside of Columbus, Ohio, for the rain-delayed running of the 26th annual Budweiser Springnationals. 1 week ago, this normally pristine facility was struck by a massive thunderstorm that literally submerged the hopes of racers and spectators alike. Now the waters have receded, and 1 week later, we're ready for the start of racing. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClellan, and welcome to a very hot, humid, and most muggy Central Ohio. This is the 8th race of the 19-event season, this Budweiser Spring Nationals. We're almost halfway through the year, and the points chase in the Winston Championship is really beginning to define itself, particularly in Top Fuel Eliminator. For more on that story, here's my good friend, Steve Evans.
David, at this point, in many seasons past, we have seen some definition in the Top Fuel Winston points. Not in 1990. Consider the top 3 drivers are separated by only 22 points total. Earlier, I asked all 3 when they hope to break away from the pack. Lori, 3 big victories, and you still can't amass any kind of points lead.
No, and it is frustrating. Not too long ago, in fact, it was last weekend, Joe Amato and I were on the news live together, and when I walked into the TV station, he turned around and he said, "How's your neck?" I said, "It's fine. Why?" And he said, "Well, I thought maybe it hurt from all that looking over your shoulder." And that is the way it is. It's a little bit harder, I think, to be number 1, but just by a very narrow lead, and puts a lot of pressure on. We really want to win today, and going into first round, we have Don Prudhomme, and I think it's going to be tough. So we just got to get past him and try to make this one work.
Gary Ormsby, you had to be a little worried until you won the last race, the Cajun Nationals, in this points fight.
There's no question about it, Steve. We've been struggling most part of the season, and that was a real lift for us to win that Cajun Nationals.
You think you could put a couple of more together and maybe bust away from this pack?
Well, we just want to at least stay up there. We'd certainly like to do that, and we've made some major changes in our combination for this race here. So hopefully that'll be the key to get us back on top and stay up there.
The worst thing that can happen is to go out early. You can't allow that to happen to you.
No, early round losses will put you down there in a hurry because everybody's so tight, you know. I mean, I think we're 12 points behind. Motto's 10 behind us. I mean, it's as close as I've ever seen.
Joe, so far it's been with consistency. You're giving Laurie Johnson, Gary Ormsby a bit of a pain in the neck.
Well, that's what takes the championship to win for the year. You've got to be consistent and, you know, win all the races you can and get the rounds.
When you prepare the car for the first, the second round, you can't take it easy. If you go out there, you're in deep trouble.
Well, you don't want to beat yourself by smoking the tires, but you've got to also get a reading on the track for the day. Thank God we've got Tim Richards and the crew, one that makes my job a little easier.
Now, those three conversations took place before the first round of Top Fuel eliminations. After first round, only 2 of those 3 drivers was still wearing their smiles. The young woman that drives this dragster, Lori Johns, found that her unfortunate pattern continues. Either she wins the race or goes out first round. Here it was the latter, and for 2 reasons. She was a little late off the starting line against Don Prudhomme. Number 2, the blower belt came off her car. She was unable to catch the snake even though she ran quicker. But talk about newfound happiness. Listen to Prudhomme.
Well, I needed it. You know, we've been struggling, needless to say, and you know, I lost my brakes down here going that fast. I don't especially like that, but yeah, we're happy with it, Steve. You know, it's just a matter of making some more laps now.
And that next lap will come against Jerry Ormsby. Here is Shirley Muldowney. 3 times a Winston champion, Shirley Muldowney loves this National Trail racetrack. It's where she won her first ever Top Fuel title. Her competition is Dick LaHaye, a Winston champion back in 1987. Both cars beginning their burnout procedures to get the vehicles ready for the assault on the quarter mile. Here in round number 2, Shirley hopes she can continue her win streak. She upset Eddie Hill in the first round. Meantime, Dick LaHaye qualified in the 11th spot. He beat Gene Snow in his first round confrontation. Here's his daughter, Kim. She's the crew chief on the Miller High Life Special, and this team had lots of problems in qualifying. In fact, it was on the final pass late Saturday afternoon that Dick LaHaye qualified in the number 11 spot. Meantime, Shirley at the wheel of the Otter Pop Special qualified 14th with a 5:24. On paper, LaHaye has the advantage, but in reality, Shirley is riding the crest of that upset over Eddie Hill in the first round. Both drivers concentrating on staging in exactly the right spot. And Shirley goes up in smoke. The loss of traction gives the win to Dick LaHaye. He records a 5.19 second elapsed time. His speed 270 miles an hour. So LaHaye advances now into the final 4, the semifinal round of Top Fuel Eliminator. The 1990 NHRA Budweiser Spring Nationals is being brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Quaker State. The big Q is One Tough Motor Oil. And by Autolite Spark Plugs, the only plugs guaranteed for 2 years, no matter how far you go. More Budweiser Spring Nationals. We're in the funny car pit area of KC Spurlock. The Winter Nationals champion crew hard at work getting the vehicle ready for his round number 2 race with Tom Hoover. Let's now go to the far end of the racetrack where Steve Evans has caught up with Dick LaHaye.
If you would have told Dick LaHaye during qualifying that he'd be a candidate for the semifinals, he'd have called you a liar, because this man has really struggled. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Steve. You know, we come in here with a whole new clutch setup, and we're slowly but surely making this thing work. And the car isn't running real well, but, you know, we're winning rounds, and that's the main thing.
No car is running real well under these conditions. A 5:19, I think, is scholarly.
Well, that's exactly what it run the first round, so I guess the changes they made, they kept it right there at the same ballpark, so we need to look at this next round and see what we can do there.
See you then.
Thank you very much, Steve.
The heat is incredible, and an extremely high humidity factor is causing these engines to have a little problem making a lot of horsepower. So the clutch setup, as Dick LaHaye just said, is extremely important. Now in round number 2 of Top Fuel Racing, the burnouts completed for both Joe Amato in the near lane and his competition, Frank Bradley. An important round of racing for Amato, because with the points leader, Lori Johns, out in the first round, Amato, who beat Kenny Koretsky in round 1, could advance in the Winston standings. For Bradley at the wheel of the Easy Wider Special, he qualified 7th and beat Jim Head in his first round race. His crew chief, Junior Connor D, throwing the switch to turn on the onboard recording device, making a final check of the gauges inside the cockpit. The crew chief on Amato's car, Tim Richards, performing the same chores. And Bradley goes up in smoke the moment he hits the throttle. Amato advances to the semifinals. His elapsed time, 5.06. Quick time of the round so far. His speed, 277, as Bradley just coasts his way down the track. Look again, and you'll see in the far lane, Frank Bradley's car instantaneously going up in smoke. Obviously, something going wrong internally in the clutch mechanism that caused the loss of traction. Here's another racer with a big chance to move forward in the Winston point standings. We're talking about Gary Ormsby. He's got the lane choice over Don Prudhomme by virtue of a quicker elapsed time in round number 1. But Prudhomme, he's the spoiler in all of this, upsetting Laurie Johns in the first round, now taking on Gary Ormsby, who came into this race in the number 3 spot. The Skull Bandit Special of Prudhomme ran over 289 miles an hour in qualifying, then backed it up with a 288 in the win over Laurie Johns. Ormsby defeated Tommy Johnson Jr. in his first round race, coming from his number 5 qualifying spot. For Prudhomme, this is his first race where he is basically serving as his own crew chief. Prudhomme is making the judgment calls as to clutch setup and the engine setup for each round of racing. And already it is paid off with the 2 fastest speeds of the season. For Ormsby in the Castrol Special, he's trying for 2 in a row, coming off the big win at the Cajun Nationals just a few weeks ago. Ormsby trying to repeat as the Winston champion. And something goes wrong on Ormsby's car. Prudhomme is headed down track. 5.17 seconds is the elapsed time for Ormsby. What a disappointment. The engine having problems right on the starting line. Looks like the supercharger may have popped right on the line. Obviously, that brings an end to Ormsby's day of racing as he gets out of the car to examine the damage. Let's watch again. Keep your eye right here on this lane nearest the tower. There's the puff of flame, and that is the backfire through the supercharger. Prudhomme at this point is under power and headed to the finish line. No question about it, the snake is definitely back, and he has spoiled the day of both Gary Ormsby and Laurie Johns, and Joe Amato's just sitting back enjoying it all. Let's go to the far end of the racetrack and Steve.
Ever since Don Prudhomme has taken back the mechanical reins of this operation, the car is flying. Snake of 5.17 at 282. Not bad at all.
Well, it's not too bad. It still needs to run a little bit quicker, but we made a few changes that time, and I think we can step it up next round.
What do you do to step it up? It's certainly not the motor with those kind of speeds.
No, but it's running those top speeds. It really kind of hurts it, so we tried to cool it off a little bit, and apparently it slowed it up some, but I think we can make some adjustments when we get back.
You were having some problems getting it to run on 8 cylinders. You fixed that. What did you do?
Steve, it really isn't there yet, to be honest with you. We're just still playing with it. I think we have a few more runs to go, but it gets a little bit better each time, and it's really been a struggle, you know, the heat and humidity and so on. It's tough.
Becoming a better toy to play with, though.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far.
Oh, this is the best State Snake has had since he's gone top fuel racing again.
Steve, what a difference a good run makes. Look at the smile on Prudhomme's face. Back at the starting line is one of the real legends of the sport of championship drag racing. Over the age of 60, Chris Karamesini's out of Chicago, Illinois, into the second round of competition with a dramatic upset over Kenny Bernstein in the first round of racing. Bernstein, the 4-time Winston Funny Car champion, making the switch to Top Fuel this year, was in the far lane of the track in the Budweiser King. Watch the left side of your screen. Karamesini's just blew past a 5.16 in the victory.
When it's this hot and this humid, Kenny, it really levels things out. Almost anybody that qualifies could conceivably win.
You really can, because what happens when you're nice, cool air on a good racetrack, it's easy to make power. It takes a lot of knowledge here to make horsepower today and to put it to the racetrack. It's a tough game.
Sorry to see you out early.
Hey, that's all right. We'll get him next time.
And he will be back. As most of you know by now, Darrell Gwynn was injured critically in an Easter Sunday accident in England. He is recovering in a hospital in Miami, paralyzed from the mid-chest area down. It was Darrell's choice that his car come back to racing with Frank Hawley at the wheel. Hawley, the operator of the drag racing school, took over the driving chores here at Columbus, qualified in the #1 spot with a 5.04, and is now racing the Strange Engineering Special of Chris Karamesini's here in round number 2 of competition. A great start for both cars. Hawley pulls away at the finish line. Jerry Gwynn, Darrell's dad, looking on intently as Frank Hawley runs a 5.06 at 278 miles an hour, keeping pace with the #2 qualifier, Joe Amato. That sets up the semifinal race between Frank Hawley and Don Prudhomme. Hawley having the lane choice. The 506 turned by Joe Amato gives him the choice of lanes over Dick LaHaye in the semifinals. Now let's go to the far end of the track. Steve's with Frank Hawley.
Frank, all of us involved in this great sport of drag racing are thrilled to death to see you carry Darrell Gwynn's banner into the semifinal round the first time out.
Well, you know, I've said this a bunch of times, but Ken Veeney and Gary Clark and of course Darrell's dad Jerry here, they've got this car running very, very well. It's made it very easy for me to just step in, obviously with a #1 qualifier and then go into the semifinal round. And I think if they can keep that performance advantage up and I can maybe not make any big mistakes,
right,
we may be in the final.
You know, you were so much shorter than Darrell. How do you fit in this car?
Well, actually, it was kind of strange because we had to move all the pedals back, but I laid back so far I couldn't see, so we had to lean forward. Then my head touched the cage, and
Other than that, it's fine.
Other than that, it's really nice.
Okay, here's your crew.
Frank Hawley obviously enjoying his initial outing at the wheel of Darrell Gwynn's top-fuel dragster. More Budweiser Spring Nationals action in just a moment. And it's time for round number 2 of Funny Car Eliminator. Here is the reigning Winston champion, Bruce Larson, at the wheel of the Century Tack and Gauges Oldsmobile. His competition is the Ford-bodied machine out of South Louisiana. The team of Candies and Hughes in the Motorcraft Probe. This car driven by Mark Oswald. Oswald has been in the winner's circle already this year, picking up the Mid-South Nationals title down at Memphis, Tennessee. In his first round race, he defeated Richard Hartman from his #6 qualifying spot. Meantime, the reigning champ Bruce Larson took destiny in his own hands when he defeated the points leader Ed McCulloch in the first round of competition. This opens the door wide for both Larson and for John Force in the points chase. This gives Oswald an opportunity to kind of act like a spoiler, much the same as Don Prudhomme has been doing in Top Fuel Eliminator. Here he's taking on Larson, currently 3rd in the Winston points chase. Larson in the near lane, Oswald in the far lane. They are both staged, and it's a red light for Larson. He left the starting line too soon. The win automatically to Oswald. More importantly, the loss automatically to Larson. Oswald with a fine 5:45, keeping pace with his previous 5:44. And his speed over 274 miles an hour. Here's John Force. If he weren't strapped in the cockpit of that race car, he'd be given a standing ovation to Bruce Larson. That red light by Larson just gave Force the chance he needed to make a big jump in the point standings. The guy that could act as the spoiler here is in the far lane of the racetrack, Art Hendy. We're riding along with Force on a long, smoky burnout designed to heat up those 17-inch wide tires. Steve?
Mark Oswald, put yourself, if you can, in the shoes of Bruce Larson. He's the quickest car in eliminations, and he red lights by 800ths?
We scared him. No, I guess he just got a little antsy. You know, our cars were pretty evenly matched. He had run a 40, we ran a 44, and a racetrack like this, it's anybody's race. A lot of times it's on the starting line, you know.
Well, you ran a 5:45 that time, so consistency is yours.
Yeah, it is steady, and it's helped us being like that, so we're going to continue with that.
I'm not sure you need to run any quicker to win this, just not make any mistakes.
That's what mainly we're trying to do. I mean, if you go back and look at the computer, it tells you got a 10th sitting right there to grab it, and you know.
The temptation is there.
The temptation's there, but you know if you do, you'll be out.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Trying to grab that 10th could also end up in loss of traction. Those huge tires designed to operate at an elevated temperature. That's the reason for those long burnouts that we have been watching on each and every car. The body coming up on Force, and crew chief Austin Coyle reaches inside the car to remove a wire, which in turn activates the second magneto on the race engine, and now Force is ready to go. Art Hendy, having made the final checks of his race car, is staging in the far lane. He qualified #8, beat Whit Bazemore in the first round, while Force from his #1 qualifying spot with a 5.30 defeated Wyatt Radke in first round racing. On board with John Force as he approaches the starting line in the final staging procedures. Both drivers taking it very carefully. And it's a red light for Hendy. He left the starting line too soon, and that's a gimme for John Force. He still ran through with a 5:51 elapsed time at only 254 miles an hour. Hendy, knowing that Force had the better car, tried to make an advantage at the starting line, but paid the price. In the Dick LaHaye pit area, we told you she's the crew chief. She performs the heavy work also. That is one of the cylinder heads off the race engine in Dick LaHaye's car, his daughter Kim, bolting it on, getting that top fuel dragster ready for the semifinals. Delayed for 1 week due to the inclement weather. A huge crowd turning out at National Trail Raceway. Over 44,000 people on hand. Steve?
It is my pleasure to introduce to you the new leader in Winston points in the funny car category, John Force. How about it, John?
Well, that's really something, Steve. It's only taken 18 years to get one shot at this. Actually, the first time I've ever been in the lead, but I think the biggest thing that scares me, my crew's doing very well, my sponsors are pleased, but to see what Larson did when the pressure gets on, and I can imagine right here he had an edge. We're going to have an edge down the road to get it again, and it's scary when the big money's out that pressure's put on you.
Larson red-lighted, Hendy red-lighted. Could some of this be heat-induced?
Well, I tell you what, yeah, there's a lot of heat, but there's a lot of points, and then McCullough fell and everybody fell, and old Coyle always makes me laugh. He looked in the window and gave me a kiss before I left, and let's go home if we get whooped, and it's working for us. How'd she run?
She ran 5:55.
We'll take it.
Steve, it really was a 5:51, and I'm sure John will like that even better as he heads to the semifinal round of Funny Car Eliminator. We're back to racing in round number 2, and this huge crowd watching intently as the burnouts proceeding for both Tom Hoover and Casey Spurlock. Spurlock, in his rookie season, has got a scrapbook of memories that he'll treasure forever, as he's already won the Winter Nationals. Here he qualified in the number 5 spot and beat Al Hoffman in round number 1, while Tom Hoover qualified 4th and beat Jerry Caminito in his first round of racing. Hoover in the far lane. Spurlock here in the near lane. Both drivers have to be thinking about the start. They've watched some of the leaders already red light themselves out of competition. Spurlock pulling ahead at the finish line and taking the victory. 5.46 seconds right in there with the best of them in elapsed times at 263 miles an hour. Hoover, valiant effort at a 5:59, several car lengths back at the finish line. As we look again, you can see a very slight advantage gained by Tom Hoover at the start. But it didn't take long for Spurlock's horsepower to take over. By the time the two cars had reached the midpoint 8-mile spot on the racetrack, it was Spurlock in the lead. He continued to extend that lead until at the finish line by more than a car length. Spurlock was the winner. Steve?
KC, your 5:46 gives you lane choice over John Force in the semis. Just what you wanted.
Great. That's going to be real important in the semis. The right lane's not real good out there today, and if we can put Force over there, he's slowed down to a 51 anyway. My guys have stayed on top of this area. I think we've got a real shot at this race.
You know, we think we're hot. What's it like in 5 layers of fire suit and a helmet?
It's plenty miserable. I sat in the staging lanes with an ice towel around my neck right before I get in the car and wait till the last minute to get in the car. It's pretty miserable in there. You're real excited to get out down here.
You didn't even feel the heat on that one.
Thanks, Steve.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve, the 44,000 plus on hand today are feeling the heat. And more importantly, the engines are feeling the heat. That's why we're not seeing times down in the 5:30s in Funny Car Eliminator as we did in qualifying. Conditions considerably different then. Our next pair of cars, Scott Coletta in the far lane, Jim White in the near lane. White at the wheel of Roland Leong's Hawaiian Punch Dodge Daytona was one of those cars that was in the 5:30s in qualifying. In fact, he ended up number 2 with a 5:35. Meantime, his competition, Scott Coletta, trying for an exact spot. X marks it right there on the racetrack. That's where his crew wants the rear tire to be after he finishes backing up after the burnout. Coletta qualified 10th and beat Dominic Santucci in the first round, while Jim White drove to victory over Johnny West in his first round race. Coletta, a second-generation drag racer, working with his dad on the Coletta Flying Services team. Scott drives the funny car. His dad, Connie, wheels a top-fuel dragster. The burnouts are over. Both drivers getting set for the start. Here in round number 2. And Coletta goes up in smoke. White across the finish line with a 5.50. His speed, 258 miles an hour. That puts him into the semifinals. Roland Leong's team finally getting some breaks. The pairings for the round of 4 finds Mark Oswald racing Jim White, with Oswald having the lane choice by virtue of the quicker ET in round 2. The rivalry continues between Casey Spurlock and John Force. Force trying to make up for the loss at the hands of Spurlock in round 1 of the Winter Nationals. In the pit area of Don Prudhomme, the crew hard at work getting the fastest top fuel dragster of the season ready for competition in the semifinals a little bit later here at the Budweiser Springnationals. 107 races, Bob Glidden did not qualify for a pro stock field. In the near lane on his final qualifying effort, Glidden was able to run a 7:47. He had to have a 7:45 to make the field.
Well, a 7:47 is not going to be enough to put Bob Glidden in this Spring National show. But, Bob, when it's big news if you don't qualify, it means you've been doing something right for a long, long time.
Well, we've really been fortunate over the years, Steve. You know, we won a lot of races, and it's been a while since we haven't qualified, but really doesn't help the moment. You know, this is racing. Happens to all of us. If it hasn't happened to you yet, watch out, it's going to.
You've been saying for years, sooner or later, they're going to catch up to me.
Well, the guys, the other cars have caught up. There's no question, but we're off. We're I started to say a little bit lost. We're really a lot lost.
We hope you find it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Steve, there's an honest man acknowledging that team's difficulties. The semifinal round of Pro Stock Eliminator. Here is the Pennzoil Pontiac of Jerry Ekman. Alongside of him, one of the most consistent cars throughout both qualifying and eliminations at this race, the AC Delco Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson. He qualified second, beat Joe Folgore and Mark Powick in the first and second rounds, respectively, while Ekman came from his number 3 qualifying spot to defeat Gary Herman and Terry Adams. These cars, powered by 500 cubic inch engines, are equipped with 2 4-barrel carburetors, and they run on racing gasoline. The roof and body portions are original, starting life as the Cutlass, for example, in the near lane, the Trans Am over in the far lane. But make no mistake about it, these are very sophisticated race cars. Ekman is staged. Johnson creeping forward, and he rolls through the lights and gets a red light. Ekman goes into the finals, but he's got problems. He's just coasting as he crosses the finish line. His elapsed time, 8:58. Won't do him much good trying to get lane choice, but he's already advanced into the final round by virtue of the red light by Warren Johnson here in the semis. Our next pair, Ricky Smith at the wheel of the STP Pontiac. His competition is the Dodge Daytona out of Mopar Parts. We're talking about Darrell Alderman in the far lane of the racetrack. By virtue of a quicker ET in round number 2, Smith has the lane choice, but throughout racing today, the lanes have appeared to be very equal.
Jerry Ekman, did you see his red light? I can't imagine you just shut it off, though.
No, well, I heard something. I was real lucky that he red lit, because I think I broke a sprag or something. The car just quit when I pulled it in high gear. I didn't have anything, so...
We'll let you go fix it.
We got to get back. Oh, we got plenty of time. That's a minor repair, really. Thanks, Steve.
We'll check on him in the pits.
While he may have plenty of time to get it fixed, it's certainly a problem that Jerry Ekman did not want to have happen going into the finals of the Spring Nationals. This huge crowd looking on now as Darrell Alderman brings his car up to the starting line. He defeated Bruce Allen and Larry Morgan from his number 8 qualifying spot, while Ricky Smith beat Scott Jeffreyon and Joe Lapone in the first and second rounds, respectively. The burnouts are now completed, and Smith rolls right in and stages, putting some pressure on Alderman to bring his car into the staging beam. A great start. Ricky Smith once again gets an advantage. Alderman almost caught him, but Ricky Smith into the final round for the second time this season. His elapsed time, 7:46. That'll give him the lane choice over Ekman, who had the transmission troubles. As we look again, you can see exactly how this race transpired. Ricky Smith gained almost 0.05 of a second advantage off the starting line. Remember, both lanes are timed separately. The clocks do not start until the car leaves the starting line. Then at the finish, it was Alderman closing quickly on Smith until they reached the finish line, where the margin of victory was just a matter of inches. Look at the times in the brackets. The reaction time, a perfect line, 0.40. You see Smith nearly 0.05 of an advantage. Alderman with a quicker ET, but yet he lost the race because Smith was quicker off the starting line. It's a battle of Pontiacs in the finals. Ekman against Smith, with Ricky having the lane choice. Steve?
Ricky Smith out of the car and a driving fool today. Your 46 beat the Dodge's 42? Wow.
I don't know how. I thought I had him at half track, and he come around me so bad in high gear, I couldn't even believe. That thing is flying in high gear.
You must be flying, too.
Maybe. We won, and I'm just proud. Jerry Ekman, them, and Bill Orndorff, they helped us with this engine.
And now you have to race them.
We got to race them, but we're in the finals. We got 2 Pontiacs there. That's what we have to.
All right, Ricky Smith and Jerry Ekman. Could be a great final no matter whose motor they're running.
Steve, I'll just bet Jerry Ekman takes back his motor for the final round. In the pit area of Jim White, they're getting that Dodge Daytona Funny Car ready. He'll be racing Mark Oswald in the semifinals of Funny Car. Nationals, we're going to be announcing the winner of the Goodyear Eagle Driver of the Race Award. Goodyear will be giving $1,000 to SEMA, the scholarship fund of the Specialty Equipment Market Association, in that driver's name. Here's Frank Hawley getting himself set in Darrell Gwynn's Coors Extra Gold Special. He's got to be concerned about his competition, Don Prudhomme. 2 upsets already today for the Snake. Laurie Johns in the first round, Gary Ormsby in the second. Hawley, though, the quickest car on the racetrack with a 5:04 in qualifying. But remember those blazing top speeds by Don Prudhomme. Both drivers just a few inches away from the starting line. And Prudhomme loses traction. Hawley across the finish line first and into the finals. His time, 5.06 at 277 miles an hour. So in the first race at the wheel of Darrell Gwynn's car, Frank Hawley giving himself a bit of a hand as he heads to the final round. His competition will be either Dick LaHaye or Joe Amato. Tremendous competition in Top Fuel. Here is the new Winston points leader. Joe Amato came into this race in the number 3 spot with Johns and Ormsby going out in earlier rounds. Joe has now advanced to the leader's spot. Steve?
Frank Hawley, the rush of acceleration could only be exceeded by the thrill of taking this car to the final round for Darrell Gwynn in your first attempt.
Yeah, when you come into something like this, psychologically, you really just have to take it 1 round at a time. We've had so many well-wishers, and the whole thing on my mind all the time was, what if we don't win this one for Darrell? And so there's been a lot of pressure from that standpoint, but obviously the car is running well, and we're just taking a step at a time.
On the starting line, the last 2 cars in this round of 4, the best 4 Top Fuel dragsters here at the Spring Nationals. Joe Amato in the near lane, Dick LaHaye in the far lane. The winner here advances into the final round to meet Frank Hawley. 2 veteran drivers each trying to add yet another Winston crown to their credit. Tremendous racing. And at the finish line, by just a matter of a couple of 3 inches, Joe Amato wins the race. A 5:13 and 2:72. The losing time for LaHaye, a 5:16. And as we look again in replay, you can see that LaHaye tried everything to win this race. He got the advantage at the starting line, but he could not hold off the hard-charging Joe Amato. But in mid-course, LaHaye continued to hold the lead. It was in the final 660 feet that Amato was able to pull by LaHaye and take the win by just a couple of feet. That sets up the last race of the day. Frank Hawley against Joe Amato.
513, Paulie will have lane choice.
Well, it doesn't matter. The lanes look pretty good, but...
You always say that if you don't get it.
Well, you know, it's nice to get it, but I'm glad to be in the final. We got the points, you know, we're trying to win the World Championship. We'll take the races if they fall.
A whole lot of points this man has already acquired at this race.
Steve, those points have catapulted him into the lead in the Winston chase. In the Jerry Ekman pit area, that's Jerry there on the left of your screen, muscling the transmission out of the car for the second time. They fixed it, put it back in, had problems with the repaired transmission. Now they've got to go through the whole procedure again, getting ready for the finals at the Budweiser Springnationals. Of competition in Funny Car Eliminator. This is Mark Oswald at the wheel of the Candies and Hughes Ford. His competition, Jim White, driving the Dodge of Roland Leon. Right now, let's go to the pit area and Steve Evans.
Studying the latest national dragster, the professor himself, Frank Hawley, the operator of the drag racing school down in Gainesville, Florida. And this is a tool you use in the school.
Without question, Steve. You know, any new racer is going to need to have National Dragster. There's a section in the back that has all the used race cars and trailers for sale. There's an area here that has all the national records so they can find out what's going on with their indexes. There's even a section in the front called Bits from the Pits that has all the latest rumors that only we know. But the most important thing is the stories it has on me, Frank Hawley. You know, here on page 11, there's a real nice story about me, and over here on page...
I hope Frank finds the time to tell his students they have to join NHRA to get National Dragster. And along with Dragster, there is the pin and the patch, the decal, the rule book. And if you call the number on your screen right now, you'll get absolutely free a copy of Drag Racing 89, Diamond P's great home video. You still reading?
Well, yeah, I mean, here's one back when I won the...
Can't believe this guy's ego. I've heard about it, but I've never really seen it.
Here's a picture of you, Steve Evans, from Diamond P. Look at that.
I remember that. Boy, that's a good picture.
What a star.
Oh, yeah.
Steve, don't fight over the paper. I'll give you my copy. Here on the starting line, it is Mark Oswald in the near lane, racing Jim White. Oswald's fine 5:45 in round number 2 gave him not only the lane choice, but the performance and psychological advantage over White, and it's a red light for Mark Oswald. White into the finals. His elapsed time, 5.51 seconds, and what a disappointment it's got to be for Mark Oswald. We have seen some great drivers today leave that starting line too soon. Warren Johnson in Pro Stock, Bruce Larson and Art Hendy, and now Mark Oswald in Funny Car. John Force has got to be thinking about the red light situation as he comes up to do his burnout. We're riding along with him inside that Castrol Special. This has become quite a rivalry since Casey Spurlock at the wheel of the Nitro Funny Car for the first time in competition beat John Force in February at the Winter Nationals. They've been at each other's throats. Steve?
We've been saying for, what, 6 months now that this man, Jim White, is just a winner looking for a place to do it. It may be today.
Roland and Wes and the guys have done an excellent job tuning the car. We're real proud to be in the final round, that's for sure.
And a red light by Mark Oswald. Did you see that, and could you believe that?
I didn't see it, although he was out there on me, and we raced a lot, and usually I get to lead first with those guys, so maybe that reaction time is starting to pay off a little bit, and they're starting to take some chances with us.
Like a third base coach in baseball, Austin Coyle, the crew chief for John Force, relaying by hand signals how he wants John to leave the starting line. Casey Spurlock is already staged. Now Force is ready. And Spurlock smokes the tires. Force into the finals for the second race in a row. Spurlock trying for a quicker elapsed time. Maybe too much power, a little too much clutch. Either way, he crossed over that very thin line and lost traction. The 5.46 second ET by Force gives him the lane choice over Jim White in the Budweiser Spring Nationals Funny Car Finals. We'll be back with all the Pro Finals in just a moment. Out here at the Budweiser Spring Nationals, and it is a pair of Pontiacs. Jerry Ekman in the far lane against Ricky Smith in the near side of the course. Since these two drivers won their semifinal race, there's been lots of work going on in the pit area. Smith won the race using an engine he had borrowed from Ekman. He had to take it out, put his own back in. Jerry had transmission problems, and earlier, Steve took a look.
This is the spare Lenco 4-speed for the Jerry Ekman team. I use it to illustrate what happened to his Pontiac when he shut it off in the semifinal round. Well, they burned out a clutch pack, as they call it. And here's a clutch pack. These little discs go between these metal floaters, and it was in the second gear transmission they found the burned out pack. See the ridges on there? That's a fairly good little clutch disc. Here's a bad one. Most of them were like this, all smoothed off. So it just slipped and slid in second gear to the point that he thought something else had broken. But this is what it was, not serious. They repaired it, and the car is ready to go.
Steve, a tribute to both drivers and crews that these cars are on the starting line ready to race. You hear the engines beginning to build in RPM. And a tremendous starting line advantage by Ricky Smith. But something goes wrong, and Ekman pulls away to take the victory. His second win of the season, Jerry Ekman, at a 7.45 second elapsed time, 183 miles an hour, propels himself not only into the winner's circle, but the lead in the Winston point standings for Pro Stock. You see there in replay the advantage that Ricky Smith gained when he left the starting line ahead of Ekman. But the mechanical problems set in for Smith at about mid-course, and Ekman streaked ahead to take the victory. Let's go to Steve with the champion.
There was some doubt as to whether this car and its driver, Jerry Ekman, would even make it to the starting line. Then there was doubt would the car perform. Now you're the Winston points leader.
Yeah, I know. What can I say, Steve? I'm excited about this win. I'll tell you, I got a good break. I think Ricky had trouble. He was out of me a ways there. And,
yeah, he was.
He was out of me. He must have broke something. But we were a little rattled out there. We had a lot of work to do in a short period of time. We got it all back together, and that trans I fixed was broke. We had to change another trans.
We saw all of that.
And I'll tell you what, I was barely in time to get my coat on and my helmet, but I'm thrilled to death to win. I'm happy for Pontiac, for Pennzoil, all the guys that helped out in this thrash. I got to congratulate Ricky, get him in here.
He did a great job, most of it with one of your motors.
Yeah, well, that's part of this team effort we've been trying, and it seemed like it worked pretty good. At least it didn't bite me in the final. It almost got me.
Did you hear me? You're the Winston points leader.
Oh, is that right? Well, that's a good place to be.
That's what without doing it.
I know it. That's what we wanted. Thanks.
And I'll tell you what, you owe your crew a good dinner, buddy.
Steve, the arrangement between these two provided the power for the pair of Pontiacs to make the finals, but the agreement was Ekman would not have to run against his own book on. Force having completed his burnout, getting set to stage for the Budweiser Springnationals finals in funny car. His competition going through the same procedures on the far side of the track. Jim White at the wheel of Roland Leong's Dodge. As Steve noted earlier, Jim White has had the performance to be a winner. He has yet, though, to take home an NHRA national event title. Force last to stage. White gathering it in the far lane, but look at Force. And low ET of eliminations, a 5:37. John Force overcoming the starting line advantage that was gained by Jim White. His speed, 275 miles an hour. John Force, for the second race in a row and the third of the season, takes home the victory. As we watch in replay, the reaction timer showed us that Jim White had nearly 0.04 of a second advantage off the starting line, but John Force's Oldsmobile had made that up quickly. As they passed the midpoint, Force was pulling ahead, and then at the finish line, the timer stopped with a 5:37.
John Force has owned this Budweiser Spring National since the moment this car rolled out of the trailer in qualifying. Now John, low elapsed time of the day at 5:37. She's yours again. He got you up the mark a little bit, though.
Oh, he's tricky over there, you little beauty. You scared the hell out of me, Wes. What can I say? Only took 18 years to stumble down this road and win a drag race. Got to give it to my sponsors. First of all, Castro, Jolly Rancher, Easy Wider, the Wax Shop, all of them people, just like you read it on a car, especially Austin Coil. My crew, what can you do without them? Same old lines, I've read it, and I'm saying them again, but it's got to be said. But most of all, my baby girl was born here 2 years ago, and his Father's Day, and I done it again. How's that?
Ever any doubt in your mind, any round today?
From the very beginning. Yesterday, Coyle said, we are dead meat here today. And I said, well, buddy, that's what I pay you for. Go out there and fix this old heap so we can all keep our jobs. And he did it, but he had me worried. He changed blowers in the final. He turned around and he said, you know, old Roland over there and them old boys are going to get real tricky. And it worked. What can I say? It stepped up.
3 races this year, the Winston points lead, the greatest year ever for the Brooklyn, John Force.
I want to say to my guys, no more Wednesday night match racing. It's a deal we made.
Oh, boy. Well, they love to hear that.
Steve, not only did John Force dominate the racing, he dominated that conversation too. Our congratulations to John Force as we're set for the finals in Top Fuel Eliminator. Here is Frank Hawley at the wheel of Darrell Gwynn's car against Joe Amato, the number 1 and 2 qualifiers respectively, meeting in the final round at the Spring Nationals. The advantage on paper goes to Hawley, who had a 5:06 in the semifinal round. That gave him the lane choice. He picked the racetrack nearest the camera. Now, Amato in and staged. Hawley the last to come into the beams. A tremendous race. And what a storybook finish. Frank Hawley driving the Darrell Gwynn-owned Top Fuel dragster. Look at the emotion being released out of the cockpit. Jerry Gwynn, Darrell's dad, surrounded by the crew at the starting line. The elapsed time for Hawley, a 5:12. The losing time, a 5:22. In replay, you can see a very slight advantage that was gained by Amato in reaction times, but the power of the Gwynn dragster made up for it. As they neared the finish line, Hawley pulled ahead and took the win.
Everyone in Top Fuel has said, if the Gwynn car comes back with a capable driver, it will be unstoppable. Frank Hawley, obviously more than capable, and they were right. The gold car could not be stopped.
I think it's all been said. I mean, this has got to be a storybook finish.
You bet.
This is for Darrell, and when he watches this, he's going to know what we're talking about. The car, I said it before, the car's set up so perfectly that as a driver, in spite of the fact that I think I'm capable, it's just a winner. That Coors team, they supported Darrell with a driver switch, which they didn't have to do. And Ken Vaney and Gary Clark and Jerry and the rest of the guys, they put the car in a winner's circle. I just try not to make any mistakes.
We have just received word you have been voted the Goodyear driver of the race, Frank.
You know, that's neat because I've been watching that Goodyear driver award for a while, sitting at home, and I didn't know how in the world I was going to win it. So it's obviously thanks to Darrell Gwynn put me here. This is really his spot, this little piece of real estate. Darrell's, and I'm just occupying it for a while.
Thank you, Frank.
Truly an emotional moment as Frank Hawley wins for Darrell Gwynn. As Steve told you, Frank named the Goodyear Eagle driver of the race. A check for $1,000 from Goodyear will be donated to the scholarship fund of the Specialty Equipment Market Association from a very good driver for a very good cause. For Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan saying so long from Columbus. The 1990 NHRA Budweiser Spring Nationals has been brought to you by Goodyear. Goodyear Eagle Radials, the best-selling performance radials in the world. And by Budweiser, Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. And by Suzuki Motorcycles and ATVs. Suzuki, the ride you've been waiting for. Coverage of the NHRA Spring Nationals has been a presentation of Diamond P Sports in association with ESPN.